Precious memories, unseen angels, sent from somewhere to my soul. How they linger ever near me, and the sacred past unfold. Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely years.
Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me.
Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. As I travel on life's pathway, no.
Maybe if you can get where you can see the stones. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the cemetery. And as we're coming down, Mark wants to know, well, why is it way out here? Okay? At one time, all of this land was owned by Daniel Henry Boone. Now, Daniel and his siblings and his mother came here from Tennessee. They were originally from New Hanover County. They had moved, his father's name was Byrd, B-Y-R-D. They had moved to Tennessee, and they stayed there until Byrd died. And then they decided they all wanted to go back to New Hanover County, near Wilmington. On the way, they passed through Randolph County and Montgomery County. They really liked the area. They met some people they liked, and they decided to stay. Daniel wound up buying a whole bunch of property. That old house where we parked, that was Daniel Henry Boone's house. And then it was later passed down to some of his other children. But anyway, so this trail that we came down was a wagon trail. And it crossed the little rivers right over here. The trail crossed the little river further down this way because it was the shallowest point of the river. So this was a good place for a cemetery because the wagons went by here every day, and the Boone family was constantly traveling back and forth, and they kept the cemetery in nice condition at the time. And the Boones were not wealthy people. When people died, they would do their best to mark their grave. They would usually use a slate stone or field stone of some sort and scratch their name in it. But over the years, of course, those old stones flaked away. And there are very few left that we can see much of. Although there are two in this cemetery right now that are still quite clearly marked. One is over this way a little bit, and I'll point it out as we, perhaps after the service if anybody's interested, was Amy Lucas, who was Daniel's first wife. He was married 3 times. And Amy was his first wife. They had one child. Well, they had 2 children, Willard and a daughter named Lunda. Lunda died as a teenager, but of course Willard lived to be quite some age. I think 86, I believe, wasn't it? About 86?
86.
And, but then, so Daniel remarried, and he married a woman named Rebecca Cornelison. Now Rebecca has an actual sandstone marker over here that's quite legible. You can read it. It's a nice one. And then they had 2 children, John Wesley and Ardelia. And then she died. he married yet again. He married Martha Patsy Bowling, who was 55 at the time they married. And Martha and, she went by Patsy, I believe. Patsy and Daniel are buried at the Maple Springs Baptist Church. If you've never been there, you should go by and see their graves. Also, his daughter, Ardelia, is buried right next to him. The first time I went there, I got a big giggle out of it because I had learned enough to know that his daughter, Ardelia, they called her Dealey, and he didn't get along well. Every time they were seen in public, they were always arguing. And she would tell her friends, I can't wait till I grow up so I can move away from this place and get away from that man. He drives me crazy. Well, she's buried right next to him. So she didn't get very far. All right. A year ago, last July, I was determined, as part of my family history work, to get a picture of Willard's grave. And my dad said, no, you can't do it. It's out in the middle of nowhere. You'll get lost. You'll get snake bitten. You know, forget it. I said, nope, I'm going to get a picture of it. I got to get a picture of it. So my sister Sheila and I managed to locate it. I found it online where it was located, and we made it out here. And when I did, I saw, of course, his grave, which has the nice little tiny but nice marker, which I understand, by the way, that Zella Brower Boone, who's Jason's wife, went around taking up a collection, a quarter here, down there, to pay for this stone. And his first wife, Mahaley, also has a nice marker. What I found here was this, which is a temporary marker. It's been there for 103 years, 108 years. 108 years. And if you look at it very closely, you can still see part of her name on there. It's still there. Okay. Now, his second wife gave him a number of children. Jason was her oldest, my grandfather. And she had several more. Somebody help me here. Nasson, Cled. Eli was the last son.
And my grandmother was Laura.
Laura. And your mother, and she had a twin sister named Cora. Laura and Cora were twins. Cora died the day of the birth. But
Grandma said 6 months old. I don't know.
Well, anyway, the records show the same day. I don't know. The record, anyway, that's all I know. But perhaps those records are wrong. They often are. But then she went into labor a 7th time. And I don't know, any of you were ever in Lexi Boone's house?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the house where they live. So this gives you a mental picture. That big front room is where her name was Lavisa, but they pronounced it Lavisi. Lavisi, it was Lavisa Jordan. It was pronounced Lavisi Jordan. All right. She went into labor a 7th time. The midwife was helping her deliver the child. There were serious complications, and she called in Roby, who was her stepdaughter, the stepdaughter of Lavisi, and she said, you need to go get a coffin because the baby's dead. And he started away. He started down the street, and she called him back. She said, you're going to need to get 2 coffins because your stepmother's dead too. So she passed away in 1903. Willard lived for another 42 years after that. Why she never had a marker, I don't know. But I thought, this is so wrong. Because, look, I mean, she has hundreds of descendants. She was the mother of Jason Boone. She was the grandmother of several of you here. Aunt Jaxie, Aunt Margie. She was the great-grandmother of many of us. My siblings, Jane, Pam, Donna, Tim, Mark. Who am I leaving out? David. Sorry, David. And Nancy. She was our great-grandmother. She was the great-great-grandmother of Rebecca, who's here. She was the great-great-great-great-grandmother of Christopher and Nathan and so many others. So many others. So I think that she deserved a little something from us, which is why I said, let's do this. Let's at least get her a little stone like the others and celebrate her life. that she lived, because if she hadn't, we wouldn't be here.
I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I wanna go one that silver line. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold. Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely hills, and old home sings of my childhood in fond memory appear. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold.